That person has no need of a conscience to be good. In fact, it sometimes seems to me that the exact opposite must be true. Take a very intelligent person, and you will immediately see that they have never been a good person. This quote belongs to the character Slim from the Book of Mice and Men. When we reflect on this statement, we can see that it has some valid points. People we label as bad are not at all foolish. Their minds work quite well. Conversely, in some people we call good, we see that they don't possess the cunning of the bad ones. But let's take a person with a serious mental disability. No matter how good this person is at heart, doesn't their mental defect eventually make them dangerous? The Book of Mice and Men is full of such short yet thought-provoking statements. Despite having only about 110 pages, the book is quite intense. The author, John Steinbeck, incorporated exquisite allegories into this short book, full of references from the Bible, history, and literature. This book can be finished in about 2 hours and is quite an easy read. However, despite its brevity, it has a deep and philosophical foundation. And the subject of this video is the philosophy of mice and men. The book begins by telling the story of two friends who set out to work on a ranch. One of them, George, is small, shrewd, and cunning. The reason he is so dominant is that his friend, Lennie, has a mental disability. But because of this disability, Lennie exhibits erratic behavior and frequently gets into trouble. The fact that this character is extremely strong, in particular, makes him unintentionally dangerous. For example, when he picks up a mouse to pet it, he can unintentionally kill it. In such situations, George often warns Lennie and saves him from getting into trouble. In short, he assumes a kind of older brother role towards him when the two arrive at the ranch. They meet characters who are just as interesting as themselves. Among them are those who are kind to them and those who are cruel. Even though George and Lennie dislike the working conditions and some of the people around them, they have to work and save money because these two have a dream. These two friends want to establish their own ranch in the future. They often remind themselves of this dream, like a mantra, to forget their daily troubles. They will grit their teeth and work on this ranch, and then they will establish their own ranch and be their own bosses. And we need to focus on the dream of these two, because this dream is very precious to them, but it is also very far away. When we consider George and Lennie's dream of establishing a ranch, we realize that it is an almost impossible task in many ways. Firstly, these two friends are in a very unlucky time period to realize their dream, because this story takes place in the 1930s, and at this time, the world was entering a period that was sweeping a serious part of humanity, the Great Depression. The Great Depression ruined the lives of the working class in particular. During this period, laborers did not have steady jobs, they had no money, and they had no place to belong. But perhaps the worst is that they had no dreams, or rather, they had lost their faith in realizing their dreams. If we return to George and Lennie and assume they are also laborers, even their attempt to realize their dream during the Great Depression makes this dream the most difficult to achieve. Furthermore, there are other difficulties. Starting your own ranch is not a cheap endeavor, and these friends don't have a single penny. And when you add the erratic behaviors of the two to this equation, it is not hard to see that such a dream will remain just a dream. So why do these two friends cling so tightly to this dream despite such negative circumstances? What kind of motivation enables a person to cling to a difficult-to-achieve dream? As the book progresses, we see that the greatest motivation of these two friends is each other. The friendship between them is what keeps the dream alive, because they know very well how terrifying loneliness is. Guys like us that work on ranches are the loneliest guys in the world. They ain't got no family. They don't belong no place. With us, it ain't like that. We got a future. We got somebody to talk to that gives a damn about us. This statement that George makes to Lennie reveals how precious this friendship is to them. In fact, we can see that if George and Lennie were not friends, such a dream would not even exist. The two of them are aware that they are in a privileged position compared to the others on the ranch, because they have each other. The situation of loneliness is very pronounced in the other people on the ranch. Here, the social barriers of their environment also come into play, of course. For example, Candy is the oldest person in the crew, and this age difference with the others makes him feel excluded and useless. Curly's wife is the only woman on this crew. Even though she tries to communicate with the other men, a barrier exists. In fact, her name is not even mentioned in the book. She is referred to as Curly's wife throughout the story. Crooks is the only black man on the crew, and inevitably, he experiences the complex of this situation. And we need to dwell a little on the character of Crooks, because he is someone who doesn't mince words. He is aware of his own loneliness, and he is also aware of how terrifying it is to be lonely. A guy needs somebody to be near him. He don't care what he says, so long as he ain't alone. Of course, a guy gets too lonely and he gets sick, Crooks says. In fact, when George and Lennie talk to Crooks about their dream, Crooks reacts scornfully. He says that their dream is as impossible as going to heaven, and he states that the other workers he has observed around him have similar dreams. But these dreams are shattered after a short time. And according to Crooks, the main reason for the workers falling for dreams like owning their own ranch is that this dream allows the workers to live in illusion to hold onto life. Steinbeck's placement of such statements in the book signals to us that the dream of these two friends will be shattered somewhere, just like the other workers. Before we get to the end of this story, there are two parts we need to stop at. One of them is the death of Candy's dog. Although it takes up a short space in the book, this death has a deeply symbolic meaning. The character Candy has a dog that is extremely old, just like him. Besides being old, this dog has gotten sick, started to smell, and can barely walk. The character Carlson offers to kill the dog. He states that there is no point in the dog continuing to live in this agony. Candy accepts that the dog's painful life must be put to an end. With Slim's approval of this idea, the decision is made to kill the dog. But who will kill the dog? Two options are presented here, either Carlson, who brought up the idea, or Candy. The owner of the dog will do the deed, but Candy cannot bring himself to do it. Consequently, Carlson takes the gun and kills the dog without even blinking. But Candy later feels great regret that Carlson carried out the deed and says, "I should have shot him myself." So, does it matter who killed the dog in this situation? After all, the dog will be shot in the back of the head with a single bullet and won't even know who shot it. In fact, the part we need to focus on here is not so much who killed it, but with what motivation they killed it. Carlson kills the dog without even blinking because, unlike Candy, he doesn't have an emotional bond with this dog. In fact, he probably harbors a hatred towards it because of the dog's stench. If the character Candy had killed the dog, his motivation for killing his dog would have been compassion rather than hatred. I mentioned that John Steinbeck is a master of allegory. He is someone who loves to sprinkle wordplay and make references throughout the book. The title of this book, Of Mice and Men, is a reference to Robert Burns' poem, To a Mouse. The events in this book take place in Soledad, California, and this word means solitude or loneliness in Spanish. Also, the surnames of our two main characters are strange. Lennie's surname, Small, is in complete contrast to the word little. But George's surname, Milton, holds a critical value because this surname is the same as the surname of John Milton, a poet Steinbeck also loved. And when we mention John Milton, his famous poem Paradise Lost comes to mind. In this poem, Milton tells the story of Adam and Eve's expulsion from the Garden of Eden. As a result of the devil seducing Adam and Eve, the two eat the forbidden fruit from the tree. After eating this fruit, Adam and Eve lose their innocence, and their flawed nature emerges. When God learns that they have violated this prohibition, he banishes the two from his paradise and condemns them to live on earth. In short, in this poem, we see that a flawed person, in God's eyes, cannot reach their dream no matter what they do. Now, if we summarize what I have told, we have the death of Candy's dog in John Milton's poem Paradise Lost. And Steinbeck beautifully connects these two events and presents us with a harsh ending. One day on the ranch, Lennie is left alone in the barn while the others are away. At this moment, Curly's wife enters through the door. This woman, who has a very flirtatious nature, tells Lennie that he can stroke her hair when she learns that Lennie likes soft things. It is a scene similar to the devil seducing Adam and even the poem Paradise Lost. But the real fact is overlooked. Lennie is mentally defective, and Lennie applies disproportionate force to the woman's hair, just as he did with the mice. And after the woman screams, he gets excited and breaks her neck while trying to silence her. After Lennie realizes he has killed the woman, he immediately runs away from the barn. When the others on the ranch return to the barn and see the corpse, they start searching for Lennie. Curly, in particular, gives the order to capture Lennie and torture him before killing him. And this is where the character George comes in. He takes the gun that killed Candy's dog and finds Lennie where he expected him to be. Instead of leaving his friend to Curly's tortuous method, he will end the task himself, because he has learned from the dog's death that if murder is to be committed, compassion should be preferred instead of the killer's hatred. And by killing Lennie, George also realizes that the dream they had is dead. But more importantly, he realizes the painful truth: George is now lonely. Just like the others on the ranch, this book, which has an extremely tragic and striking ending, leaves a heavy feeling on the reader when it is finished. What was the author's purpose in this book? Was it just to make us unhappy, or did he have a deeper purpose? John Steinbeck said these words in his Nobel Prize in Literature acceptance speech. The writer is charged with exposing our failures and our defeats as swiftly as he can, and for digging into the dark and dangerous pits of the mind and heart, for the things that make us fail and for the reasons we are sometimes great. Further, the writer is charged with the duty of celebrating man's proven capacity for greatness of heart and spirit, for gallantry in defeat, for courage, compassion, and love. Taking this statement into account and returning to the story, the friendship between George and Lennie, some characters on the ranch who have not yet lost their humanity, and finally, George taking on a tragic responsibility and offering his friend a merciful death, these events gain even more meaning. With the author's statement and the ability of such a short and sad story to still leave such beautiful emotions, and the human heart is what truly makes this book special.